Hi, Bethel Church. Excited to be here with you tonight. My name is Lynn Clayton. I'm a staff pastor here, and I am just privileged to be with you. Tonight, I want to talk to you about grip and swing. Recently, I've been visiting the driving range with my husband and my 5-year-old son, Isaiah. Matt, my husband, has been patiently attempting to teach me to golf, and I assure you, not an easy feat. Golf is one of those activities that I'm convinced God is using to work humility in my life. I don't like being bad at, well, to be honest, anything. And golf, let's just say, I would not say it is an area of strength in my life. Nevertheless, my husband is patiently teaching me. I learned quickly that golf, it's much more than simply swinging a club. Before Matt even gave me a ball to hit on top of a tee, he says, "Okay, babe, right here, I'm gonna show you how to grip the club." I look at him and I'm like, seriously, grip the club? Okay, probably not what I would have started with, but you've golfed, I haven't, so okay, teach me how to grip the club. Then he says, okay, let me show you how to swing. Okay, how to swing. Doesn't seem like it should be that hard, but okay, show me how to swing the club. So he positions my feet a little wider than my shoulders. He shows me how my arms should be positioned as I bring the club back. He shows me that my head should be down because wherever I'm looking, the ball is going to go. My body should pivot ever so perfectly to the left. Turns out the swing is much more complicated than I ever would have imagined. I use muscles in my body I never knew I had. Wouldn't consider myself to be out of shape, but apparently I need to lift a little bit more weight. After I learned the grip, after I learned how to correctly swing the club, I actually got to hit a ball. And that's a whole nother story that I don't care to get into because I don't like to embarrass myself too often. The point is, there are some basics that I need to understand, at least if I don't want to continue to publicly humiliate myself on a golf course. See, the same is true in our Christian life. There are some basics that we need to understand and become proficient at if we want God's best for our life. Recently, we have been studying the book of James together. And we could describe this book as the how-to book on Christian living. It brings us back to the basics. James presents us with some foundational truths that when we apply to our life, that they're going to allow us to soar in our Christian journey. And right now, we're going to talk about the most powerful resource that you and I as Christians possess. This resource is what separates the minor league players from the major league players. Now let's take a look. James chapter 5, starting in verse 13, it says, "Is anyone among you suffering? Let him pray. Is anyone cheerful? Let him sing psalms. Is anyone among you sick? Let him call for the elders of the church and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith will save the sick, and the Lord will raise him up. If he has committed sins, he will be forgiven. Confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed." As a follower of Christ, your most powerful resource is prayer. We must understand that there is nothing that will substitute prayer. Prayer, simply put, is communion with God. It's taking a time out and inviting God to walk with you and help to direct your life. You're putting him in the driver's seat. It says if you're suffering, if you're having a difficult time, you need to pray. If you're having the best day ever, you got that promotion, you got a raise, you passed that exam, you took a shower before noon, and you have 3 children at home, sing psalms. It's just prayer to a beat. You're celebrating with Jesus. If you're sick, if someone you love is sick, call for the elders of the church, anoint them with oil, and pray and believe for healing. If you've sinned, confess to one another and pray. Prayer in the life of a believer should be a common practice. Oh no, not out of religious routine, not simply to make you feel better about the situation or even make you feel better about yourself. Prayer is and must be so much bigger than that. Right here, James stops us and he begins to shift the thought. He stops us right here in a sense saying, hold up for a minute. I want you to understand why it is that you pray. And he continues in chapter 5, verse 16. The effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. And he continues on by giving us an example of what he's teaching us. He says in verse 17, Elijah was a man with a nature just like ours, and he prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth produced its fruit. We see two things coupled together in these verses that positioned Elijah to be a conduit of God's power, of God's ability. He prayed, but in addition, he had faith, belief in the God that he prayed to. You may wonder to yourself, how do we know that? How do we know Elijah had faith? Well, in 1 Kings 18, it tells us that as Elijah was praying, he would send his servant out and told him, look toward the sea and see if rain is coming. And even when the servant came back and he came back and he said, there's no rain, Elijah, there's not even a cloud in the sky. Elijah kept praying and he kept sending his servant back 7 times. Most of us would have given up at 3 until it rained. Against all odds, he believed, and his belief was evident in 2 things. His word and his deed, they lined up. One demonstrated obedience to pray, and one demonstrated faith to believe. Now understand, it's not your faith or my faith or our prayer even that heals. In James 5:15, it's very clear. It is the Lord that heals. The power, the provision, the healing, comfort, peace, it's not in the prayer or even in the faith. Your obedience to pray and your faith to believe in God's ability is what positions you to be a conduit to see God's display of power and character. In golf, it's not my grip nor my swing that ultimately gets that ball down the fairway. It really is the power and strength of the golfer. However, without the correct grip and the willingness to swing, the ball will go nowhere. Well, at least anywhere I intend it to be. Prayer is the grip, and faith is the swing. And that's our part. The power, the provision comes through Jesus Christ. He is the one who provides. The Bible tells us in Luke chapter 11 that one day Jesus was in a certain place and he was praying. And as he finished, one of his disciples comes to him and he says, Lord, will you teach us to pray? I find it really interesting that out of all of the things they could have asked Jesus to teach them, they asked him to teach them to pray. See, they must have understood, they must have realized the source. Jesus starts by giving them an example of how to pray, and then he breaks into a story Jesus style, as he often did. And he says, suppose you went to a friend's house at midnight because you needed bread. You knock on their door and you tell them, a friend of mine has come into town for a visit and I have nothing to feed them. I need your help. And your friend calls out from the window, do you have any idea what time it is? Go home, stop bothering me. My family's in bed. What's the matter with you? We're asleep. Come back tomorrow when the sun is up. I can't help you right now. And Jesus continues to tell his disciple, I tell you this, he may not get out of bed for friendship's sake, but if you keep on knocking, he's going to get up and give you whatever you need because of your shameless persistence, because you didn't quit. Now I tell you, the only reason that you would continue to pester that friend is because of 2 reasons. First, you know their character, meaning that you believe if they have the means to help you, they're going to help you. And secondly, you know they have what you need, or you wouldn't be asking them. And Jesus continues in Luke 11, verse 9. He says, so I say to you, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks, receive, and he who seeks, finds. And to him who knocks, it will be opened. We continue to ask, we continue to seek because we trust God's character and we know his ability. The truth is there is no substitute for prayer. And prayer without faith, well, why ask if you really don't believe? I dare you. Let's grip that club through prayer and have enough faith in God to actually take a swing. Let's not look at prayer as a spiritual Hail Mary, as a last resort, but let's look at it as the only way to play. A Christian's most powerful resource is prayer. Let's grip and swing. Tonight, we're going to break it down together. We're going to get in some small groups, and we're going to look into this further. How can we in our personal lives grip and swing? And would our lives look any different? I want to turn it over to the small group leaders tonight, and I hope you guys have a great discussion.